Hello friends. What if Naruto's journey through the forest of death led him to something far more important than survival, the truth about his own mother? Welcome to part 2, where hidden powers awaken and destiny starts taking a completely new path. Before we begin, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Let's get started. Ino and Sakura looked at each other. Ino narrowed her eyes with a smirk while Sakura took a deep breath before tightening her gloves. Ino only needs line of sight, unlike her father, Sakura thought as she looked at Ino. Naruto looked down at Sakura as he turned off his Rinnegan and, with 2 gold coins in his hand, made a fist around it and placed his other hand over it. Hayate looked between both girls, raising his hand as Naruto closed his eyes and whispered a prayer. Artemis felt divine energy appear from Naruto's hand as she looked over and heard him whisper the prayer before looking over to Sakura to see her adjust her stance. Who did you pray to? Artemis asked Naruto in his mind once Naruto opened his eyes and opened his fist to show that the olden coins were gone. Lady Taish so that Sakura can have good luck in this match and Lady Athena so that Sakura can make a good strategy, Naruto told her as Artemis. Hayate brought his hand down and called out, "Begone." As he said that, Sakura pulled out pellets from her pouch and threw them onto the ground, and once they hit the ground, they burst into pink smoke. The smoke covered both Kunoichi and Ino looked around, trying to find Sakura before she ran to where Sakura was. But Sakura was no longer there. Naruto looked down into the smoke and followed something through it, while Artemis did the same thing and looked at the same spot as Naruto. You taught her how to move silently, Artemis said as Naruto nodded but said nothing. Kakashi looked amazed that his Kunoichi student was going through this as he could not find her and to hear that Naruto had taught her this. Sakura moved through the smoke with her hair bending into the smoke as if she could see where Ino was, and with her fist back, she shot it forward into Yamanaka's chest, sending Ino out of the smoke. Ino flew out of the smoke skidding across the floor as she clutched her stomach. When did she get so strong, she asked herself in thought. Ino moved her feet to be ready to move as the smoke started to clear. But more smoke bombs flew out of the smoke and burst, allowing more smoke to form. Where did she? Ino started to say but was soon covered by the smoke. Shikamaru looked at the battle zone in shock at how the fight was going as Naruto watched silently while Artemis turned to Kakashi. What have you thought of her, Kakashi? She asked him. Kakashi turned to the moon goddess with an ice smile. Oh, nothing much, he told her. That does not answer the question, Artemis said as she turned fully to Kakashi. All you taught my son that was any use to a ninja was the Ki no Bori no Shugyo. So what have you taught her? She asked Kakashi once more, who looked at her in shock. Who told you that? Kakashi asked her with sweat on the back of his neck as he felt disapproving eyes from both the Hokage and his fellow Konoha Jonin. But it was not just the Konoha Jonin but the Jonin from the other villages. Naruto did, and when I secretly checked his mind and found that he was telling the truth, I wondered what you taught your team's Kunoichi, Artemis said. Kakashi got ready to answer, but Naruto beat him to the punch. The same as me, he said to his mother but did not see the look on Kakashi's face or the Artemis, narrowed eyes aimed at Kakashi. Now why? Kakashi said before Artemis cut him off. Minato would be disappointed with you, she told him as Kakashi's visible eyes shot wide. I was unable to raise Naruto because of a law my bastard of a father had made. But you did nothing to aid your sensei's son, Artemis told Kakashi as the man felt that he was being stabbed. Asuma scoffed as the moon goddess turned to him. He's an Uchiha, he told the goddess as she raised a brow at him. He means that all Kakashi cares for is the Uchiha clan and would do anything for an Uchiha, Kurenai said as Kakashi glared at both of them, but they were not affected by the glare. Before Kakashi could speak again, Ino was sent out of the smoke again, but this time her feet were not touching the floor. And the smoke was dissipating again. She only has 3 smoke bombs left, Naruto muttered. 3 smoke bombs flew out once more, and pink smoke covered the area once more, and now she has none, Naruto said with crossed fingers. Ino landed on her back as she got up and looked around before pulling out a kwani and throwing it into the smoke. She waited and waited, and she looked into the smoke waiting for it to dissipate, and when it did, Sakura was not there as Ino looked around. People with dojutsu activated them, or in Kakashi's case, pulled up his Hitai 8, and they saw that Sakura was standing in front of Ino. Where is she? Shikamaru asked before a portion of dust was kicked up as Ino as soon punched them in the cheek. What jutsu is she using? Artemis asked her son as she saw Naruto gripping the railing. The Mugen Maisai, as the smoke bombs I made for her, a special blend of liquids, and one comes in contact with the air, it turns to smoke, Naruto said as Artemis looked amazed by her son, but she cannot hold the jutsu for long, Naruto said as he looked at Ino being pummeled by the invisible Sakura. How long can she use it? Artemis asked her son. Naruto looked over to his mother. From what we timed, she can use this jutsu for 2 minutes, Naruto told her as Artemis nodded. Sakura kept punching and kicking Ino around the arena floor while Ino tried to defend Aegis, the invisible opponent. She is hitting harder than normal. What the is happening? Ino screamed in her head. Before Ino could punch where she thought Sakura was, she felt something hit the side of her chest, and it took her off her feet, and she felt a crack in her ribs before she was sent into the center of the area. Shikamaru and Choji looked shocked by the battle happening. How is Ino losing? Choji asked Shikamaru, who did not know. I mean, she's part of the Yamanaka clan, show how is she losing? He asked, but he did not get an answer. Being a part of a clan does not mean that you can win every battle, Artemis said as both boys looked over to her. When I was training my 3 students, Yugao Azuki was the best out of them and was the one that had beaten all others that she fought, and that meant those from clans, she explained to the boy. Asuma nodded as both his students as they looked at him. She's right, I fought her, and I was beaten black and blue and was lucky that I came out of that fight with my arm on my body, he told his students as Artemis raised a brow at him. Come on, she was trying to cut off my right arm, Asuma told her as Artemis rolled her eyes at him. My old teammate was not trying to cut your arm off, Karin said as Asuma looked over at her. Sensei taught all 3 of us how to use a sword, and she was not going to cut your arm off. She was going to dislocate your shoulder as she was using the back of her sword, Karin said, rolling her eyes as Asuma looked shocked. Naruto not listening to them, he kept an eye on the battle as he followed the invisible Sakura with his dojutsu, and he saw that the flow of chakra was slowly fading. She's about to become visible, Naruto muttered as Artemis looked at him before she looked down to see that he was right. Why, it's too early for her, Naruto muttered as he narrowed his eyes. He saw chakra coalesce around Sakura's right fist and start to resemble an animal's head. Tarakasaki-kun, Sakura called out as the chakra turned into a tiger's head and shot out of her fist at Ino as a beam. Ino's eyes shot wide as the beam hit her square in the chest, as she saw a new side of Sakura that she never saw before. Ino slammed into the wall behind her as she lost consciousness, and Sakura fell to her knees. Hayate walked over to Ino but kept his eyes on Sakura before he knelt down to check on the downed blonde, and after checking to see if she was breathing, he stood up. Winner of the 5th match is Sakura Haruno, Hayate called out as Sakura let out a sigh and started to fall back as she was out of energy. But before she could fall, she felt something appear behind her. She looked behind her to see Naruto with a loving smile as he looked at her. You did good, Naruto told her as he gently lifted her up as medics walked over to Ino. But next time when you need to finish a fight, don't use something as taxing as Ruoken, Naruto told her as he teleported back up to the observation area. I know, and it's called Tarakasaki-kun, Sakura muttered to him as Naruto placed her down gently on the ground. I thought that only a tiger could stand up to a dragon, Sakura told him as she saw Naruto's eyes fill with joy. Asuma soon appeared back with his team like Naruto did, but he had Ino in his hands as he placed her gently against the wall. Where did you see that, Sakura? Shikamaru asked Sakura, who looked over at him. For the 2 days before today, Naruto aided me in my training by showing me how to fight, but when he was training with his clones, I saw him using a technique that I made a version of, Sakura told him as she held right arm as it was shaking slightly. It seems that I was not ready to use it, she muttered as Artemis looked Sakura over. You need to train your strength more before you can use that, she told the girl who looked up. You just used chakra-enhanced strength, don't you, she asked. Sakura nodded as Artemis sighed. What? Sakura asked her. Naruto uses another fighting style called Geki Juken to form a base for him to use his Meruken, Artemis told her as Sakura's eyes shot open, and with him using the dragon aspect of Geki Juken to make Meruken, Artemis said as Sakura hung her head. It hurt my body as I was going against the dragon aspect, Sakura said as Artemis and Naruto nodded as Naruto rubbed circles into her back. Naruto, can you? Sakura started off as she turned to Naruto. Yay, I will, Naruto said as Kakashi scowled at his students. Why don't you ask me, he asked Sakura, who looked up at the one-eyed man with a raised brow. Why would I ask you when you only teach Sasuke, Sakura said as she looked at him. Kakashi blinked. I mean, Sasuke has learned how to use both fire release, and you started teaching him how to use lighting release, Sakura said as Naruto nodded. My summons taught me how to use one jutsu of each of the basic elements, and I taught Sakura how to use both of hers, Naruto said as he looked at Kakashi from the corner of his eye as the next two people walked down. The first was Yoroi's final teammate Masumi Tsurugi. Masumi's appearance was greatly concealed by the mask he wore around his mouth that hung around his neck and Hitai-8, which he wore like a bandana, and he also wore What Team's clothing that consisted of a high-collared, sleeveless, purple shirt with a short-sleeved, white one underneath, a simple obi around his waist, purple pants, blue sandals and purple fingerless gloves, along with a pair of round-framed glasses. The other person was Fu's other teammate Yoro. He has short spiky black hair and small black eyes, with his outfit consisting of a dark violet vest with two scrolls attached to it, a light violet turtleneck, and dark green colored pants, and he wears a blue Hitai-8. But Naruto and Sakura did not care about the matches. They wanted to tear Kakashi a new one, and with the foreign ninja here, it added to the man's humiliation. Mom taught me most of everything that I know. Naruto started off the verbal attacks, the rest was taught to me by the dragons, but you have only taught me and Sakura how to work as a team. With only me and Sakura working as a team while your favorite student was doing none of the sorts, he added as Sakura nodded. And like always, you would play a blind eye, and when we were in Wave, you taught us the Ki no Bori no Shugyo, not when we just came out of the academy like you were supposed to, Sakura said as Kakashi turned to her as he felt the eyes of the Hokage drilling into him along with Guy, Asuma and Karin's eyes as well. And with had happened during the exam in the forest and Sakura realizing that she needed training, she came to me so that I could help her, and I did, and even though I did not mind that everyone here knows that she should go to you, Naruto said as Sakura nodded while Kakashi looked between his students. And let's not forget that Sasuke does not care for me or Sakura as he wants only to kill someone and would do anything to do just that, he added while Kakashi had nothing to say. Hearing this and to say he was disappointed was an understatement. Kakashi, meet me in my office when these matches are over, he told the man as Kakashi looked over and nodded. And I was right. Minato really would be disappointed with you, Artemis said as Kakashi looked over to her and could see pure hate being aimed at him from the goddess. Even Rin and Obito would be disappointed with you as you said when you found out that Minato and I were going to have a child. You said that you would help them and teach them what they needed to know, Artemis added as Kakashi flinched at the names of his dead teammates. And from what most people did not see was that one of the Kiri nin flinched at the name Rin. Kakashi had nothing to say as everyone turned back to the match to see that Hayate was calling the match a draw. Hayate looked at everyone as they all looked confused. Masumi was using Nan no Kaizo to make Yoro pass out from lack of air while Yoro was using lighting release to do the same, he told everyone as medics came and carried the two boys off the field. As the names started to shuffle once more, Kakashi looked at Naruto and Sakura as they talked about going out for food when the prelims were over. His mind was going over what both of them had said along with what Artemis had said, but for some reason, something was stopping his mind from fixing the mistakes. A picture formed in his mind, a 4-point pinwheel spinning as he blinked and shook his head before the image vanished as the next two names were picked. Karin Uzumaki vs Shikamaru Nara. All of the Konoha nin eyes shot to the board, with Artemis and Naruto being the most surprised as Naruto pulled out his clan scroll and opened it before he found the name and showed his mother. Karin has crimson eyes, fair skin, and the characteristic red hair of the Uzumaki clan, which she wears in an unusual hairstyle with her hair cut short and spiky on the right side, while longer and straight on the left side, and she wears narrow brown glasses, which have a serrated blade hidden in them, and her outfit consists of mesh shirt and stockings, a purple skirt, a light brown short-sleeved jacket with an orange stripe going across the chest, and black sandals and a Kusugakure Hitai-8 on her forehead. Shikamaru looked over to the girl he was fighting before he looked at Naruto. Is she? He asked her. She is my cousin on my mother's side, Naruto said as Sakura looked at him in question. I'll say in a bit, Naruto told her as she nodded. Shikamaru narrowed his eyes at what Naruto told him but nodded as he walked to the battle area. So how is she? Sakura asked him as Naruto turned to her. Is she from your uncle or from when she was? Sakura asked as Naruto nodded at her. Mom was one of 3 children that were the heir of the Uzumaki clan, Naruto told her as Sakura nodded along with him. Mom had a younger brother Nagato and a younger sister Rias, he added as Artemis nodded with her son. Kurenai turned to Artemis. I didn't know you had siblings, sensei, she asked the goddess. Before I was in my shell, I had younger twin brother Apollo, and when my bastard of a father put me in my shell, I had 2 younger siblings, Artemis said as she gained a gentle smile. My little brother was such a baby and would always stick to mom or me so that he could get away from the evil man, who was his teacher, Artemis said as Naruto smiled. What about your sister? Sakura asked as Artemis's face turned dark. The best way to put it, Nagato was the angle that always did as he was told and was sweet and a little wimpy, Artemis said as they nodded, not getting where she was going. Rias was a devil that was caused chaos and would once a week blow up a building just for the hell of it, Artemis growled as Naruto looked amazed. Shikamaru, who was taking his time getting down, hearing this, started praying that Karin was the daughter of Nagato. But his prayers were not answered by what Artemis said next. While her eyes are not the same as Rias's purple from our mother, she looks like a little Rias, the goddess told Sakura as Shikamaru reached the middle of the area. Karin met him in the middle with Hayate standing in the middle of him, but if you looked closely, you could see that he wanted to jump away, and those with sharp ears heard him say, not another Uzumaki. Naruto raised a brow at what he said as he saw Artemis crack a grin and chuckled at what Hayate said. Hayate raised his hand as he looked between them before he bought his cry of, begin. Kane pulled out a kunai with a paper tag that was attached to it before she threw it at Shikamaru. Shikamaru jumped back as the kunai landed in a line in front of him before they exploded, making a large cloud of smoke, and Shikamaru did the smart thing. And waited. Now of all the things that he expected to come out of the smoke, a golem of stone was not one of them. Shikamaru ducked under the fist that the golem sent his way as he looked it over with narrow eyes while up on the observation deck, Naruto was looking down at the fight with narrowed eyes. What is her plan? Naruto muttered as he looked into the smoke and tried to see what she was doing. If she is anything like Rias, she is going to use more explosions or other destructive things, Artemis said with a twitching eye. Sakura looked into the smoke as she looked where Naruto was looking but could not find anything. How are you seeing her? Sakura asked him. I'm not really seeing her. Well, not really, Naruto said as he looked over to Sakura, who looked confused. I'm using mantra's presence sensing to see through the smoke and find her aura, Naruto explained as Sakura still looked confused. You see, Naruto-san is using haki, and that is allowing him to use extranet abilities, and the one he is using is called mantra or better known as Kanbunshoku haki. Guy told Sakura as she looked to the older-looking Lee as the man's 3 students were doing the same, and with him using that type of haki he can see the aura of a person that is hidden in something, Guy explained as Sakura gained a look of understanding. On the other hand, Lee looked amazed. Can anyone learn this? He asked his sensei. Guy shook his head. Yes and no, haki has 3 parts to it, Guy told his student, and when Naruto said that he has all 3, that means he is one in several million people born with this ability, Guy said as Hiswan nodded while Neji looked shocked. He speaks the truth as I only know a few men that had this ability that Guy speaks of, Hiruzen said as everyone, apart for Shikamaru, who was jumping from the golem and Karun, who was looking at Shikamaru with narrowed eyes. From Konoha there were both Hashirama Senju and the second was Minato Namikaze, Hirswan said shocked while everyone was amazed by that. What about from the other villages? Sakura asked as people from the other villages nodded. Well, from Suna, I think that Miyawa the 3rd Kage has this type of haki, and the current Mizukage Mei Terumi has this haki as well, Hiruzen said as the Suna and Kiri ninja looked amazed by what he was saying. Both the current and 3rd Raikage as well in Onoki the Tsuchikage has the Haoshoku haki, the Hokage finished as Neji was having a mini breakdown. Do you not have this ability Hokage-sama? Kakashi asked as he looked shocked that Sasuke did not have it. But that was nothing new. But he shook his head. No, I only have Kanbunshoku haki, and the ability we were talking about is hereditary, and from what Hashirama sensei told me, he got his Haoshoku haki from his mother, Hiruzen said as Neji looked over to Naruto. Then what Sakura said started making its way through Neji's head. Konoha Mountain, the Hokage Rock. And he said count to 4. That means that his father is, Neji said as he looked at Naruto, and when his mind took Naruto's whiskers away from his face, he looked like a younger Minato Namikaze. Not aware that Neji's world was crumbling around him, Shikamaru started to use his plan. He knelt down at the golem, turned to him, and formed the rat seal as his shadow shot out and attacked the golem. Shadow imitation complete, Shikamaru said as he rose to his feet and moved his body to face the wall. The golem followed his movements, and Shikamaru and the golem clapped their hands. And while Shikamaru's clap did nothing, the golem, on the other hand, blew away all the smoke that the kunai was making as Naruto took a good look at the kunai and saw that the tag that was connected to it was not explosive tags. Smoke tags, Naruto said as everyone looked at him, that is what Karin is using. Smoke tags that allow for a ninja to work without being seen or having to go face to face, as they can work in the background silently, he said as Sakura looked amazed before looking at Naruto with puppy dog eyes. Sakura, no, I know that you want to have something that can help you when you are going medical ninjutsu, but you must do them for yourself, Naruto said, not looking at her as he thought, no, I will not look. He would not look, he would stay strong. He would not look. He saw pink in his periphery. He turned. He looked. He broke. Fine, I'll make them for you, Naruto said as he hung his head in defeat. Choji walked over and patted Naruto's back as Sakura kissed his cheek, and Artemis laughed. Oh, you are too much like me, Databane, she told her son as Naruto looked over. When your father wanted help with Fuinjutsu, he would be just like your girlfriend here, Artemis said as Sakura looked shocked but red in the face. Karin looked over to her golem and released it after seeing that it was no longer under her control. So do you think you can do that again? She asked Shikamaru, who raised a brow at her. Did you not that the Uzumaki clan have chakra reserves more than a cage when they reach 13? Karin told Shikamaru, whose eyes shot wide as he glanced at Naruto, who nodded. Your clan sounds troublesome, Shikamaru said with a sigh as Karin narrowed her eyes. Look, I don't want to fight a girl as I don't think that it's right, Shikamaru said as he heard growling from above him. And he dare not look as it was from both the goddess and her demigod son. While the other woman was not any better as Sakura pulled out a kunai and started to engrave it. Kurenai was planning to use a genjutsu on him. Tenten thought that he would make a good training dummy. Enko was planning to have her snakes play with him. And what was only the Konoha Kunoichi as the others were planning other ungodly things for him. As she was pure, Hinata's thoughts were nothing like them. And why is that? Karin asked him, a dark look in her eyes, and that was when Shikamaru knew he up. But he could not stop his mouth. All Kunichi are weaker than the shinobi, he told her as his eyes shot wide as he felt the killing intent from the females around him, along with Naruto. I'll turn into a jack, Artemis said before seeing a dark smile form on Naruto's face. Oh, I have a better idea, Naruto said as most of the people read Kakashi, Asuma and Kurenai's final student, stepped away from him when they saw the smile. I'll turn him into a woman, and you curse him, Naruto said as Artemis gained an equally dark smile on her face. I like your plan, she said as Asuma looked shocked before bowing his head along with the other two men that stepped away. And all three of them said as one, better him than me. Shikamaru felt a chill go down his spine as he looked over to his sensei to see that man bowing his head and the dark look on the faces of the women. He then turned to Karin, whose face looked shadowed by her hair, and her crimson eyes glowed eerily as Shikamaru prepared for her attack. And he was bricking it. Karin shot at Shikamaru with lightning speed as the shadow user dodged slashes from Kunoichi's kuni before he formed the rat seal once more, as his shadow shot forward once more and connected to Karin this time as she stopped in place. Shikamaru, seeing that he had caught her, sighed, shadow imitation completes, he said once more before both Karin and Shikamaru started to walk over to the other side of the room. And with how Shikamaru had them placed, Karin was just in front of the wall while a few steps away. What are you going to do, you monkey? Karin growled at him. 1. I'm a Nara, so I'm a deer, Shikamaru said as he raised his head back as Karin did the same. And 2. I'm going to do this, he told her as he brought his head forward fast and hard. And with Karin copying everything he was doing, she headbutted the wall hard and knocked herself out when her head met the wall. Hayate walked over to Karin and checked on her before calling out, "Winner Shikamaru Nara," he called out as Shikamaru nodded and started returning up. Shikamaru made his way up the sights as Naruto looked over to him, and so he took a deep breath and felt for the magic that came from his mother's godly blood that flowed within him while keeping his target in his sight. He called on the feelings he used when changing his student, follower and little brother in all but blood from male to female. And there he felt a tug in his fingers, as if pulling an arrow across a bow. With the index, middle and ring fingers of his right hand curled, he felt the magic form, and he took aim at Shikamaru, who was walking over to his team. And when he was close, Naruto's three gingers shot out as if they had just shot an arrow, and the magic flew and made its way into the boy. Shikamaru felt something happen to him as he felt a tingling sensation wash over him. As he looked at his hand, he saw changes starting to happen. But we can get back to him. After a while Shikamaru felt funny as the next two names. Takiwa of Nadeshiko village vs Kankuro of Suna. Kankuro wore a bunraku puppeteer's costume, a black, baggy, full-body suit with a red and yellow circle on the front. He also wore a black hood covering his head completely, with cat-like ears and his hitai on his forehead. Kankuro's face was covered in purple warpaint makeup, and he had 4 triangles with one on each cheek, one on his forehead and the last on his chin, 2 jagged lines that come down from his forehead to the bridge of his nose. He also had it around his eyes and mouth. Takiwa, on the other hand, had an imposing figure, easily towering over Kankuro and most of the others that were in the exam. She had a slender physique with a very angular face framed by her short brown hair along with a dark shade of red lipstick. She wears a short, backless, red, full-body suit over mesh armor, a pair of arm-length gloves, a light orange sash, and a long blue-green apron open in the front, and wears bandages on her wrists, covering all of her right left as well as her left thigh and leg, and she carries an extremely long and thin katana strapped to her back. As they both met Hayate in the middle and then started the match, Takiwa looked over at Kankuro with a raised brow. "Are you by chance a puppet user?" she asked, catching the boy off guard as Kankuro nodded. "I see that. I must concede this match as I do not believe I would win this fight at my current level against a puppet user," she said to Hayate, who looked shocked before he nodded and declared Kankuro the winner. "Smart," Artemis said as everyone looked at her as the two genin walked back to their respective teams. "Not many close-range fighters would attack a puppet user," she said as most of the jonin nodded. "Puppet user?" Naruto asked his mother as she looked at him. "The best way to put it is you with Shirato but not alive and made of wood," Artemis said to her son as Naruto's eyes shot wide. "Yep, I fought a few, and they were no joke," she told her son, who nodded. Before long, the next two names were picked as Shikamaru's body changed. His figure started to become more like Ino's, and his hair became softer along with his skin. His mesh shirt gained 2 mounds over his chest. And the two names that were picked were Tenten of Konoha vs Akatsuchi of Iwa. Both people walked down as Asuma and Choji looked at Shikamaru with wide eyes as they saw him become her. They looked over to see a smiling Naruto as they put 2 of 2 together. "Naruto, you did this?" Choji asked him as Shikamaru looked over to Naruto, who nodded. "Why?" he asked him. "Why, our dear friend Shikamaru decided that he had to say that all kunoichi are weak, and so I decided that he should feel that weakness," Naruto said with a smile that did not reach his eyes as Choji nodded. Artemis walked over to the boy-turned-girl and whispered in his, know her ear, "And as a goddess of maiden girls, and I have a group of female hunters, I decided that you will not turn back to make until you know what power a woman really has," she whispered her his as her eyes glowed as Shikamaru nodded. Tenten went down to the bottom, not before she unsealed a katana and handed both her scrolls to Lee, who was shocked. It was where she met Akatsuchi, who was also standing and walking down. Akatsuchi is a large and imposing teen with dark eyes and black hair that spikes out at the back from underneath his bandana-styled hitai. He wears the red Iwagakure uniform, which has both its sleeves and accentuates it with a yellow scarf which he wraps around his neck. He also has large cheeks and a plump nose, which give him an overall look of constant joviality. Naruto looked over to Lee as the boy looked at the scrolls in his hands. "Has she learned a style?" Naruto asked him as Lee looked over and nodded. "When she reached the tower only a few hours after you, she hit the library to find a kenjutsu style and found the Kokyu-ho," Lee said as Artemis and Naruto looked at him, then looked down at Tenten. "What is it?" he asked them. "Tenten may have found her perfect style," Naruto said as Lee's eyes shot wide, "but she must start with the sun and go from there," Naruto said as Artemis nodded as Lee looked in with a question on his face. What do you mean? He asked Naruto, who looked at the boy. I know Kokyuho myself, but I only know the basics, Naruto told Lee, who nodded, but when you learn Kokyuho, you always start with Hai no Kokyu, Naruto said as Artemis nodded. I was able to master both Mizu no Kokyu and Tsuki no Kokyu, Artemis said as Kurenai's eyes shot wide, but I could not even try to use the other 10 styles as it would not match my style of fighting, the moon goddess explained to her former student. So, Lee, what else do you know? Guy asked his student, who looked at him. Tenten also wants to make her own style and change Naruto-san once more, Lee said as Guy nodded, and I would like to spar against Naruto as well, he admitted as Naruto looked over to Lee with a raised brow. Really? Naruto asked him as Lee nodded, then if we do not fight in this exam, I accept your challenge, he said to Lee, who smiled widely. Both of them then turned to the match as both Tenten and Akatsuchi were in the middle. Hayate looked between them as Akatsuchi smiled at Tenten. I hope we have a nice match, he told her as Tenten nodded with a smile before she looked at Naruto. Naruto looked at her and nodded. Tenten turned back to her opponent with her katana ready as Naruto looked at Tenten with his Kanbunshoku haki to have a look at her and saw that her aura was taking the form of a sun. Begin, Hayate called out as Akatsuchi went through 4 hand seals and then a wall of earth from out of the ground in front of him and blocked Tenten from him. But she did not care because as soon as Hayate called, Tenten closed her eyes and took hold of her sword. She took a breath in and then breathed out. Air in, air out, air in, hot air out, air in, white smoke out, air in, steam out. Akatsuchi then ran through the wall with segments of the wall over him as Tenten raised her sword as flames gathered on the outside of it. She then moved to the side as Akatsuchi barred past her, and she did an overhead arching slash with a blazing sword. The flaming blade moved through the stone that covered Akatsuchi and started to dry and crack as the blade cut through. Sensei, isn't that, Suna Kunoichi asked the man beside her. She has teal eyes and sandy blonde hair, which is gathered into 4 consecutive pigtails. Her outfit consisted of a long-sleeved purple blouse under a gray top, a dark blue skirt, and a longer sash arranged in a bow, in addition to incorporating fishnet worn over her legs, specifically on her right calf and her left thigh. She also wore her black hitai around her neck and on her back was a large metal folding fan. The man she was talking to was Suna Jonin, whom Hiruzen spoke to. He's a very tall man with 2 distinctive, red markings on the right side of his face, the only visible part of his head, with the rest being covered by his turban-like headgear and by a sheet hanging from it on the left side of his face, and he dons the standard attire of a Suna nin, complete with a hitai and flak jacket. Yes, Temari, that is short release, but that girl is not using it like Pakura does, he told her as the now named Temari looked confused. You see, Akashi left something out when she was explaining that Kenjutsu style, he told her. What do you mean, sensei? Kankuro asked him as the youngest of the team looked over as well. The Kokyuho calls on the elements so the strikes gain more power, he told them as 2 of his students nodded, and so with Hai no Kokyu being that of the sun and thus calls on scorch release, he added as they nodded. So now that Iwa Nin's rock armor is getting too brittle, Temari said as she saw the rock armor fall from Akatsuchi. Tenten's body seemed to relax as Naruto saw the sun turn to a calm sea. Akatsuchi turned around in time to see that Tenten had shifted her stance and crossed her arms while holding her sword before going for a concentrated horizontal slash that generated water that both cut through the front part of his armor and soaked the rock. That was the first form of Mizu no Kokyu, Artemis said as she looked over Tenten before taking in parts of her before turning to Guy. You good as she when it comes to weapons? The goddess asked him as Guy looked shocked. Hiruzen, shocked by the question, asked, why? Because if I'm right, Tenten may be like Naruto and is my half-niece, Artemis said as Hiruzen's eyes shot wide as he seemingly teleported over to Artemis before forming a seal so that only the Konoha ninja could hear the conversation. So her mother is like you, a goddess? Hiruzen asked as those that did not know looked either confused or shocked. Artemis nodded at him, yes, and by looking at Tenten, it is either one of the 2 twins of war, Artemis said as Guy looked confused. What do you mean? He asked before his eyes shot wide, and he sank to his knees. I mean, what do you mean Kushina-sama? Guy asked. Naruto's eyes gained a little bit of math in them as the people looked shocked, except for Sakura and Kurenai. Mom is the goddess of the hunt, the moon, animals, forests, archery, childbirth, maiden girls, radiance in the wild and is one of the 3 virgin goddesses of the Greek pantheon, he told them as they looked confused, and my mother's name is either Artemis or Diana, Naruto said before Sakura turned to him. What do you mean? She asked him. Ages ago, a civilization called Rome came about, and so they adopted the Greek gods, but they gained a new personality and some new domains, Naruto explained. Artemis' eyes became hard as she looked at her son. Naruto, she said as her voice was colder. Naruto turned to her. Yes, Mom, he asked her. Why must you tell them that I aged so that I must shift over? Diana asked as everyone looked amazed. Yes, I am Diana, the other side of Artemis, and the domain that was added was woodlands, she said as she turned back to Artemis as her eyes lost the hardness. Hiruzen looked amazed before he shook his head. You said something about the twins of war, he asked Artemis, who looked at him. Who does she live with? Artemis asked as Neji and Lee looked at each other before returning to Artemis. She lives with her father, Lee said as she nodded. Then it's possibly my half-sister Enyo or her Roman counterpart is Bellona, Artemis said as a cough was heard next to Artemis. Everyone turned to see another woman standing next to Artemis. She had short black hair in a pixie cut with blue highlights, pure spirit white eyes of the damned that died in the war, and a crazy sinister smile. Her body is military-like, with a lean figure and strong biceps, and she was dressed in a purple crop leather jacket for women with silver fur around the neck, and a black crop top with the symbol of anarchy on it, black gloves over her hands, a shot purple and black skirt along with fish nets and biker boots, and at her side was a baseball bat. Naruto saw her, and his eyes shot wide, and he sank to the floor on his knee. Lady Enyo, Naruto said as the other Konoha ninja did the same, but they also saw something on Naruto's face that shocked them. Fear. Enyo looked over at the Konoha ninja and waved her hand. You may raise mortals, she told them as they all stood up. And you guess right, Tenten is my daughter, Enyo said as she looked over the match as Tenten shifted stances once more. Artemis looked at Enyo with a raised brow. Are you going to claim her? She asked the war goddess. Enyo looked over to Naruto and looked at him with narrowed eyes before turning to Artemis. I'll tell you after you tell me why you have not claimed your son, Enyo asked her. Naruto looked at her confused before he rolled up his sleeve to show his arm. Lady Enyo, Naruto said as the war goddess turned to him and saw his arm. My mother is both Artemis and Diana, and so to keep me safe from my grandfather Diana claimed me and Mom told me she'll claim me at Camp Half-Blood, Naruto told her as Enyo looked at Artemis for confirmation. And with Artemis nodding, Enyo laughed and slapped Naruto on the back a few times. Ha ha ha, oh, I like you, kid, Enyo said to Naruto as the demigod felt his back click from hard she slapped his back. And if I did claim her as my daughter Ares will be it to her, Enyo told Artemis, who sighed and nodded. Guy, looking confused, turned to her. What do you mean Enyo-sama? He asked the war goddess. My twin brother is a to both mine and his own daughters, and before he claims his, they must prove that they deserve to be a daughter of Ares. Enyo said as she rolled her eyes, but when I have a daughter, and I claim them, he desired to personally give them a quest to prove that they can be his niece. She said before scoffing as she looked down at the field in time to see Tenten sheathing her katana, then redraws it and performs a singular horizontal slash following a crescent shape, creating numerous chaotic crescent blades along its path, before sheathing it once more. This here is why I'm happy, why I have Apollo as my twin, Artemis muttered as Enyo glared at her. But you did not answer my question, the moon goddess asked the war goddess. Enyo lost the savage smile as she looked down at her daughter as the crescent wave that Tenten sent out hit Akatsuchi and got rid of his armor before he formed a few seals and a stone golem, one like what Karin called out, formed out of the ground and loomed over Tenten. Yes, I will claim her, but I ask you one thing, son of Artemis, Enyo said before turning to Naruto, who nodded. Join her on her quest and make sure that she comes back alive, she asked as Naruto looked at her and saw that in her glowing golden eyes was the care that his mother held for him, but it was for Tenten. Tenten raised her katana above her head as she recalled the attack that Naruto used against her with the wolf. But she could not call on a wolf. No, she called on something just as powerful. Yabanarashi, Bofu, Tenten called out, and she brought her sword down and, as a bait of chakra, shot out of her katana and traveled across the ground and cut through the golem. The chakra wave moved past Akatsuchi and looked at Tenten with wide eyes before raising his hands. I surrender, he called out. Hayate walked over as he looked up to the observation area to see Enyo looking down. He raised a hand. The winner of this match is Tenten of Konoha, he called out as her team started clapping. Well done, Tenten, Enyo said as Tenten heard her and looked up to see her mother. Tenten then blinked, and Enyo was no longer there. Hiruzen saw that Enyo had gone, nodded at Artemis, and reappeared at his chair as both ninjas walked back to their respective teams. Akatsuchi got back to his team as they looked at him while two of them patted him on the back, saying that he would do better next time. The last one berated him. Here are his teammates. The first was a very tall teen, dressed heavily armored, wearing red armor that covered his body and faces with only his light brown eyes. He was eyebrowless showing, and his armor extended all the way to the bottom half of his face, covering it up, and he wore a white cloth which also covered both sides of his face and the top of his head. Aside from his red armor, he also wore a red kasa over the white cloth, which seemed to be composed of the same material as his armor, and he wore his Iwagakure Hitai 8 on a black cloth and over his armor. The Iwa Genin wore a black gi, with the sleeves seemingly torn off, and black gloves, and around his neck he wore what seems to be a bronze-colored ring around his neck. Also, the armor covering his arms, legs and torso was plated. The next one was the Jonin sensei of the team, who had red hair, a mustache and a beard that tapered off to a point. He wore a large headpiece consisting of a three-pointed crown-like ridge, bearing both his Iwagakure Hitai 8, a ring, and a prominent black piece of armor running across his cheeks and the bridge of his nose. He wore a long-sleeved magenta kimono shirt and pants, a mesh armor shirt and fitted black suit underneath, and calf-length sandals, and around his waist, he wore a brown sash that held a brown armor-like plate with a pouch in the front, a brown back plate on the back that was connected to the show with mesh armor, and armored lapels falling to the sides. Then there was the kunoichi of the team, who had short, black hair and distinctly pink eyes, which were accentuated by her eyelashes running upwards at the corners. She wears the standard attire of the Iwa Nin, consisting of a red uniform with her right sleeve missing and a lapel over her right leg, fishnet tights and a skirt over them. She also wears regular shinobi sandals and a pair of gloves. Rayleigh Akatsuchi, you lost to a tree hugger, she asked him as Akatsuchi as sensei shook his head with a small smile. While I would not have said not, you did well with fighting someone that uses the Kokyu-ho, he told him as Akatsuchi nodded. I myself would not fare much better than you would have, he added as Iwa Kunoichi's eyes shot wide. Rayleigh Roshi-sensei, she asked him. Yes, Kuritsuchi, as when I fought both the Akashi and the Shiarashi, and I still have the scars, Roshi told her as he showed his arm, and her team saw a long scar going up his arm. The Akashi did that, Kuritsuchi asked as she looked at the scar, but Roshi shook his head. No, her one was on my back. This one Shiarashi did and well as he was her father, Roshi said as both Kuritsuchi and Akatsuchi gulped. Roshi looked over to his armored student as he looked at the red-haired Suna ninja. What is it, Han? Roshi asked him. The Ikibi Jinchuriki is slowly becoming unhinged with each passing moment that he is not fighting, Han said as Roshi looked over and winced as both Kuritsuchi and Akatsuchi looked over but could not see anything. What do you mean, cuz? Kuritsuchi asked Han. As Roshi and I are Jinchuriki, we can tell if one of our siblings is off the deep end, Han said as Kuritsuchi widened, and even though Roshi and I are not liked in the village, we are not attacked like what Suna does to him, Han told her. What do you mean? Akatsuchi asked. Suna goes out of its way to try and kill its Jinchuriki, Roshi said as Kuritsuchi and Akatsuchi looked sick, and with how their seal work if worse than shit, the Jinchuriki is practically insane, he added as Han nodded. And our siblings have taken note as well, Han said as Kuritsuchi and Akatsuchi looked around. The first was two Kumo ninjas. The first was one of three Kumo kunoichi who had long, straight, blonde hair bound with taut bandages and dark eyes and wore red lipstick. She wore a short-sleeved black and purple blouse and black pants, both of which had a design similar to clouds, purple fingerless gloves and a chain of blue beads wound around her left hand, and she also wore the standard Kumogakure Hitai 8. Sandals and a kunai holster strapped to her right thigh, and on her arms and legs she wore bandages and a red belt around her waist. Then there was the Kumo sensei. He has dark skin with a muscular build, as well as white hair and a goatee, and on his right shoulder, he has a tattoo of the kanji for iron, and on his left cheek, he has a tattoo of a bull's horn, and his top lip also has a slightly darker hue than his bottom one. He wore oval-shaped sunglasses and a white-colored Hitai 8 with his village's standard one strap over one shoulder flak jacket, with a yellowish trim, and a long, red rope belt tied around his waist, the traditional kumo hand and shin guards, shinobi sandals, and a white scarf around his neck, and he carries 7 swords on his back. Both were looking over to Suna Jinchuriki, with the female Jinchuriki looking ready to fight him while her sensei looked prepared to grow to his tailed beast tails. Next was the Kiri Jinchuriki. The first was the Kunoichi, whose attire consisted of a black, backless, sleeveless undershirt and black stretch pants, a white cropped jacket with a high collar, which covers the lower part of her face downward while bearing a good portion of the lower half of her, and the jacket has a zipper running along its entire length, which is opened from the bottom upwards, that has beige air filters on either side just below the trim. The jacket's sleeves completely envelop her arms, terminating in black glove-like extensions at her extremities, resembling the appearance of a cat's paw. She had long, messy brown hair, 3 braided locks, and brown eyes. A large red sash around her waist and a Kiri Hitai sewed into the left sleeve of her jacket. On her head are some goggles, and she has thigh-length boots. Then the Kiri sensei, a tall, thin young man with pale golden eyes and brown hair that reaches to his shoulders with very narrow eyes, and the side parting let a large portion of his bangs cover the left side of his face. He wore a full-body gray suit and a variant of the village's flak jacket with very low shoulder guards, a zipper, and a pouch on the upper right chest. He also wore the village's Hitai, fingerless gloves, and bandages on his forearms. Around his waist, he had an orange sash, and at his side, he had a bamboo jug with a pipe. The Kunoichi looked at the Suna Nin, and while the Iwa ninja did not know what she said, her team turned to the Suna Jinchuriki, and the ones with the swords got ready while the sensei shook his head. Fu also looked over to the Suna Nin. Her face had changed as she spoke to her team, smiling all day. But now she had a frown on her face. Then there was Naruto, whose eyes turned purple as he looked at the Suna ninja. Back over with the Konoha ninja, and when Tenten had returned to her side, she was asked by the Hokage to meet her in his office along with Naruto and their sensei. After a while, the next 2 names were picked out. Chojuro of Kiri vs Zaku Abumi. Naruto looked down at the Oto ninja. He bit into a lion before looking over to the now named Chojuro. Chojuro has short, tufty blue hair and dark eyes. From what Naruto could see, he had pointed shark-like teeth. He wore square, black-rimmed glasses connected to ear protectors, a blue pin-striped shirt and camouflage pattern pants. He wears his Hitai on the front of his holster, which he uses to carry his sword. That sword has a wide, flat blade with 2 curved indentations near its base, creating a sort of cross guard with 2 handles connected to one another by a short length of cord, and the overall sword looks like a flounder fish in shape. When not in use, Haramakare is wrapped in bandages, and it was on his back, leaving only the double hilt visible. He also has shuriken holsters strapped onto each of his legs. Both of them walked down, and Naruto saw that Zaku had broken arms. Naruto raised a brow and looked over to Sakura. "Didn't I only break one of his arms?" he asked Sakura, who nodded as Kakashi looked confused. "I was separated from the team, and when I rejoined them, I used an ability that I got from Mom to turn into a lion and from Zaku's left arm," Naruto told him as Kakashi nodded and looked down. Kakashi narrowed his eyes as he looked at Zaku for a while. "It looks like he's faking it," Kakashi told them as Naruto narrowed his eyes as he looked at Zaku. "How can you tell?" Naruto asked as Hayate stood between them. "Look at his right arm and tell me what you see," Kakashi said as Naruto and Sakura looked down as the match started. "He's moving his right hand," Sakura said as Kakashi nodded. "The arm is not deformed," Naruto added for her as Kakashi nodded once more. "Yep, and that is only a small part of what you told me about your mother's domains, so I have to ask, do you have hunter's eyes?" Kakashi said, then asked Naruto, who nodded. "If you look at him, you can see slight tremors from him over his left arm, but none from his right," Kakashi added as Naruto looked at Zaku and saw that Kakashi was right. "His left arm is slightly swollen, as you can see, and you can tell that his arm is slightly bleeding," Artemis added from Kakashi, who nodded as Naruto narrowed his eyes at Zaku and saw there was a bit of blood seeping through Zaku's arm. Zaku moved his arms as he moved his arms to point at Chojuro. "Zenkaha!" Zaku yelled out as he sent out chakra, sound waves and airwaves from his hands. Now, his right hand sent the triple mix of chakra, sound waves and airwaves that shot out at Chojuro, while his left arm exploded off his arm. Naruto had not only broken it when he was a lion, but he somehow locked the hole and made it so that it blocked the chakra going to the hole in his hand. When the arm exploded with nothing left, the bone splintered, and flesh and blood spread to the floor. Sakura looked away and hid her eyes in Naruto's chest as Hinata closed her eyes. Chojuro moved forward as he drew his sword and, with the flat side using it as a bat, knocked Zaku into a wall. As Zaku looked up, Chojuro had finished going thou a set of seals and had ended on the bird seal. Suiten. Daibikufu no jutsu, Chojuro called out before he expelled a large volume of water from his mouth at Zaku. The water hit Zaku, basting him into the wall once more and forcing him to close his eyes, and when he opened them, he saw that Chojuro was running at him and tried to raise his remaining arm, but Chojuro was faster. Suiro no jutsu, he called out as the water around Zaku formed into a sphere around the Oto Nin. Chojuro placed a hand on the sphere and looked at Zaku. Please give up, or I will use lightning release to electrocute you from within that sphere, Chojuro asked him, but Zaku moved his arm so Chojuro's hand that was on the sphere started to gain electricity and he started to shock Zaku. Chojuro cut the electricity off and asked Zaku once more, but before he could, Hayate walked over and shook his head and called out, "Winner Chojuro of Kiri," he said as Chojuro released the water sphere and Zaku raised his arm to fire a blase at the Kiri nin but Hayate at a sword to Zaku's thought. "Don't even try it," Hayate said as Zaku glared as medics came and took him away. Sakura, who had turned back to the match to see Zaku lose, took a deep breath and then let it out before turning to Naruto. "How were you okay with watching that?" she asked him. "I wasn't," Naruto told her as the Konoha nin looked at him, "but I know what this job needs, and so I knew that I need to keep a cool head," Naruto said as he looked down at Sakura. "It's not easy to do," he added as she nodded, "but it helps you deal with what we have to do in this job," he said as the older ninja nodded. After the battlefield was cleaned, the next two names were picked. Karui of Kumo vs Shizuka of Nadeshiko Village. That's it for part 2. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Naruto What If stories. And comment below, what do you think Naruto's new summon power will become? See you in the next video.